Warning, the following podcast is brought to you by dads who are still wondering what's in the mystery jar in the fridge. Welcome to the All Pro Dad Podcast.
Hey, welcome to the All Pro Dad Podcast. My name is Ted Lowe, and I'm joined today by BJ Foster.
Hey, Ted.
And Mr. Bobby
Hey,
Lewis.
what's going on, Ted?
How many sons do you guys have?
I have one son.
Bobby?
Me too. I have one son.
Yep, I have two. And the reason I'm asking is we're talking about something that's very important to dads and their sons.
Before we get to sons, I want to tell you about a study that I ran across that I found pretty fascinating. I'm not a smoker, occasional cigar once in a while, but I don't really smoke very much. And I read this study on smoking done in England from 2008 to 2023. The stats blew my mind. I want to read some of them for you. 58,000 smokers were analyzed by this study. The average participant smoked 11 cigarettes a day. Now, obviously, that's a lot, and it comes with a lot of health concerns when you smoke that much, including heart disease, cancer. You guys have all heard this before. But here's a line from the study. In both sexes, smoking 1 to 4 cigarettes per day was associated with a significantly higher risk of dying from ischemic heart disease, which basically means lack of blood flow to your heart. All the things that come with smoking, we've all heard it before. The pack of cigarettes says, don't smoke, it's bad for you. All the things you've ever been told by every teacher, every coach, don't smoke, right? There's something worse for your health than smoking, and it's loneliness. That's what we're talking today with our sons, because it affects boys in a way that maybe it doesn't affect girls. It's worse for your health than smoking 15 cigarettes a day to succumb to loneliness. It's a big deal. The U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, in 2023, he said this quote, that we have an epidemic of loneliness and isolation, and it's coming after your kids.
Like, sometimes you don't even kind of know some of this stuff is happening. I recently moved to Oklahoma about 5 years ago. Before that, I was living in Florida. And I was going about life fine. I didn't have really any close friends, male friends. And I just kind of thought, well, all right, maybe this is how it is. And I've got my wife and I'll just be close with her and that's it. And then I moved to Oklahoma and started to develop some really good, close friendships. And I realized looking back how much I was missing and the impact that it was having on me.
Yeah. Have you guys ever seen that Alone TV show? It's called Alone. You seen the show? Okay, just to summarize it, essentially it's a bunch of survivalists. It's a reality show. They drop them off in the woods. They have their own set of land, so you're not going to bump into anybody else. And they say, all right, take a couple of survival things, survive out in the woods as long as possible. And whoever survives the longest wins the predetermined amount of money. The tricky part is you as a contestant have no idea if anyone else is tapped out or not. You just assume everyone else is still surviving on their own. Now, they're all skilled enough that they can hunt and they can build a shelter and they can make a fire and all that sort of stuff. But what gets people is the isolation. No human contact for weeks at a time. Some of these guys go for like 3 months and they're just out there on their own and they can hunt, they can eat. They can't handle being by themselves. And I think that says a lot about us as people.
Yeah, that reminds me of that novel Into the Wild about this kid, Christopher McCandless, went out in the middle of nowhere, in Alaska and was living by himself and ultimately succumbed to the whole, it passed away and was found, and he had a journal. And inside his journal, it said, happiness is only real when it's shared.
Oh, man. Yeah,
and so the reality is that we were not made to live in isolation.
BJ, I was like you. I realized that when I had a major move, but mine was the reverse. I lived in California for our first 5 years of marriage and was surrounded by buddies and other couples. We had so many friends. I worked with those friends. We would hang out with those friends. There's about 5 of us. And then we moved to the Atlanta area and all of a sudden they were all gone and I was living in isolation. But looking back, I do remember it being a really big struggle, but I had not done the math of why it was a really big struggle. And it was a really big struggle because I was living life alone in isolation. I didn't have those friends. I didn't have those guy friends in my life that I'd so needed.
Yeah, it's really important. I was having lunch with one of my friends in Oklahoma, and afterwards I said, "Hey, thank you for listening to me." And he was like, "No," he goes, "Thank you." He goes, "Because I really haven't had a lot of this type of stuff."
Yeah,
and he goes, "So he's like, it's really great to have kind of a brother in arms who we can talk about stuff with."
Yeah, I had a great time in college. I lived with some great buddies, met my wife when we were in college, but she graduated before I did. And so she started working as a teacher professionally, and I was still a student. When I graduated, I got a job in a different state. And we weren't married yet. We were engaged, but I had to move. And so I moved from Florida to Louisiana, and I was living there, and I just basically worked all the time because I didn't know anybody. It's a first-time career. I wasn't married. I didn't have any buddies there. Didn't know anyone. So I just worked and worked and worked and worked because that occupied my time. And I gained a bunch of weight. I mean, I was lonely, dude. I had nobody to talk to. Eventually, I joined like a men's basketball league. And so I had a couple of buddies, but they weren't even my same age. We didn't really get along outside of, we had this one shared hobby, which was basketball. So it bought me like an hour of fun each week. But I was just sitting in my apartment by myself doing nothing. And eventually, I got married, and then I had my wife with me all the time. And so I was less lonely, but still it's hard to be in that position as a man because you don't need isolation. You need companionship. And if you don't have it, it's a huge hole.
Right. Well, I think these examples are perfect examples of the very definition that we're using today for loneliness. And it's defined as wanting more friends or connection than you actually have. I mean, it's that simple. I want this relationship, but boy, it's a lot of work. It's really tough. And it's an ongoing problem, right? This is something that is so systemic, and you see it across the board with so many guys.
Yeah, here's some wild stats for you. In 2021, a Survey Center of American Life reported that 1 in 7 men had 0 close friends. In 2023, Equimundo found that 2/3 of men aged 18 to 23 said that, quote, no one really knows me, which is sad. And then 2024 report found that 40% of men reported feeling lonely at least one time a week, which is sad. It's devastating.
Yeah. Well, and the results of this whole thing, I mean, this really can affect our health and our well-being, just from a physical standpoint. A couple things. I'm not a doctor, so I'm going to read some of these things, but premature death, cardiovascular illness, anxiety, dementia, depression, stroke, substance abuse, all of those are an increased risk from feeling lonely.
Yeah.
Well, I abused ice cream. I remember when I was in Louisiana, I was like, dang, I got nothing to do. I'll just sit at home, and I ate a lot of ice cream. It's funny because I look back at pictures of it now.
And you look normal.
And my friends were
Ben
Ben
and
Jerry.
I wasn't lanky and skinny. I was like, dang, look at that normal looking person. But no, it's funny that you say that. We kind of say it jokingly, but it was a bodily change. Like loneliness just changed me physically, which is wild. And I think it's possible, if there's a guy out there listening, he's like, it's not a big deal. I got a lot of people. I'm around people all the time. I got friends at my work, and I got friends over here, and I see people at the T-ball game or whatever. I think it's possible to be surrounded by a lot of people, but known by nobody. So true. And that's hard because loneliness, if you're thinking it's just isolation, like the Alone TV show, it's just you off on an island by yourself. That's not loneliness. Loneliness is, in my opinion, like having a ton of phone numbers in your phone, but nobody to call. Or you're at the gym and you're like, look at all these people, and you have no one to talk to. Like, that's loneliness. And it is impacting probably the guy next to you, and he's too afraid to say it, or it's impacting your son and he doesn't know what to say about it. Loneliness is something that is becoming, I think, an epidemic.
Wow. I've heard someone say we have thousands of followers, but no one to feed our dog if we're on vacation.
Yeah.
Right? Like we don't have anybody to reach out to. So why are men experiencing so much loneliness? Why is this the thing? Working with married couples, here's what I found. Men lean too heavily on their wife relationally. And I think we're sort of taught that once you're married, your wife becomes your friend, and you don't need to have other friends. And that's just not right. It's way too much emotional pressure to put on one person. Hey, you're my everything. You're going to meet every emotional and relational need I have. There's a quote by Dr. Sue Johnson that I think speaks perfectly of this. She says, we now expect our spouses to meet the emotional needs of what my grandmother received from a village. So let me make it really simple. Our wives should not be our only friend. It's too much pressure on her. But here's what I know. And you guys know it too, making time for friends, it's not easy, especially when kids are younger. We don't have time with energy. And then if we do go spend time with our friends, it can put the pressure back on our wives to watch our kids even more. And so I realize, and when our kids were younger, it's way difficult. You're exhausted, right? You're exhausted from work, and you say, hey, I'm going to go play golf right now. You could get killed. you could die from that. But it's a big deal. We know which one to acknowledge. This is not easy.
Yeah. No, and I do think, we put it. Our wives really try to, like. Have you ever had like your wife has a friend and then their husband and you all get together and it's like they're talking and they're almost looking at you like it's a science experiment. Oh, you
is
guys get together.
Is it going to work?
Yeah. And then you're with the other husband, the other husband, you're like, you're kind of both looking at each other like, let's just make the best of this. Like,
well, I've done that before. My wife has invited, one of her friends over and her husband comes over and we sit there and we have a great time for 2 hours. And then 3 weeks go by. I'm like, oh, I could text him. Oh, I didn't get his phone number. Like, I can't contact him if I wanted to. Yeah. It is true though, because this is the experience that I've had with my very good friend from college, my best friend growing up, when we were in those formational young adult years. He just moved to Tennessee. We used to live in the same state. And so I've been trying to keep up with him, how things going with your life, but we just don't have the time to like dedicate for an hour and a half conversation. I know, and he knows that we've got like overlapping schedules in the morning when we're driving to work. If we don't call each other, we ain't talking today. And when we get home, it's really hard for me to tell my wife, hey, I haven't seen you all day. I haven't seen the kids all day. I'm going to go on the porch and call my buddy. I want to talk to him instead, because then you're taking time away from your wife and your kids too. And you got obligations for them and you want to spend time with them. You haven't seen them all day. It's a really hard thing. And that can lead guys into loneliness. You can drift into it without meaning to. And that's just a tough place to be.
And it's so important because men, because of this epidemic of us being isolated, men are less likely to seek help. And it's, if they depression, anxiety, like, hey, I'm not going to ask for help. I don't know how to do it. A lot of people are really afraid of counselor. I don't have a buddy to talk to.
That's weak.
Oh, it's weak. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Years ago, I remember I had to see a counselor and it was like, oh, this is for crazy people. Yeah. Like I remember asking the counselor, can I come in the back door? Because I worked at a church. I didn't want anybody to see me. They would think I'm quote unquote crazy. So we've been taught that isolation's okay, but it's just, there's so much damage. And we keep talking about what is the damage of isolation? What does it create? But I do think there's this pressure towards hyper isolation, strength and control. And it makes it difficult for men to form relationships, right? You guys, there's this amazing study, and it's an 85-year Harvard study that followed 700 plus people for the number one predictor of long-term health and happiness. And it wasn't diet, it wasn't wealth, and it wasn't even genetics. It was the quality of their relationships. Wow. Community really is the best medicine for the body and the brain. It's so important. I mean, just the stats you started with just prove that in so many ways. That leads to our big question of the week is how do we address our loneliness and the loneliness of our sons?
Well, let's start with a survey I came across. So a survey by the Survey Center of American Life in 2021 reported that only 48% of men reported feeling satisfied with friendships, and 15% say they have no close friendships, which is a 5-fold increase since 1990. So this is a growing thing. And unfortunately, I think the problem is that you've got, and I think you've said it, is that many men suffer in silence. They don't want to come across as needy. They want to, they don't want to come across as weak. And they just kind of labor and grind this thing out, or just kind of accept that, oh, this is just kind of the way it is. Yeah. And then we end up dying younger.
It reminds me actually of a video that I saw recently where it was two guys, and you know how they cut back and forth between one man and the next man, and they're sitting in what looks like different locations, but they're talking to the camera and they're like, yeah, man, I just wish I had a buddy. I just want to talk to somebody. And then they pull out the camera and it's like, you guys are sitting next to each other in a restaurant. Why don't you turn and face each other and talk?
Right.
And it just, what you were describing made me remember that video.
Yeah. But here's the, and so this is the thing. I think a lot of men are kind of thinking, well, I can grind through it, or I'm tough enough, or I don't need that. But here's the reality. Our sons are watching us. Mm-hmm.
So true.
Our sons are seeing the quality of our relationships. And if our sons see us, like, look, finding a friend is, finding close friends, that can be a challenging thing. That's a very, they don't just appear out of nowhere. But do your sons see you doing things that would cultivate or give you the opportunity to build those friendships?
Right.
Are they seeing that? Are they seeing you pursuing those things, or are they seeing you just kind of faking contentment at the situation?
Right. This is so important. And we talked a lot of stats that are pretty depressing, if we're being honest. I mean, so how do we change this? What's the change agent of this whole thing? I think it starts with us acknowledging our lack of friends, addressing it. How do we address our lack of friends? Because our kids are watching that. Again, they're modeling it. I mean, you think how we're always gauging with kids, like, how are they doing with friends? Do they have good friends? Like, it's so important in life to have good friends. And then we become adults and all of a sudden it's not important. I just think it's a little ironic. And so our kids are watching us. I have friends that I think meet different needs. Like, I've got one buddy named Eddie, and I could talk to him about anything. And then there's, Kevin, if you want to play golf, and you better not talk about anything seriously. And then I think about, and we were talking about it earlier, just how we're all friends, right? We're all hanging together. And it's just how great it is to work with friends, but they're meeting different emotional needs. And it's okay to have a lot of friends and not one friend being everything. But it's great for accountability, right? Our friends are great for wisdom and fun. And it's part of us taking care of ourselves. Saw a study says that men don't connect face to face, but shoulder to shoulder. And that's okay. Like, they go play golf or they go hang out, and that's okay. It's not like you're going, hey, I need to do relationship. Like my wife, it's just a little bit different. One of the greatest gifts of our lives is when we're in Atlanta and we've moved back. I have no friends. Like, I'm not doing great. I look back now, it was like Eeyore for several years. But we joined a small group of couples who are still in our lives. And we moved there in 98. In fact, we spent so much time with, as families, my kids called them the friends' cousins. They would call it the aunt and uncle, and they were like their cousins. And so one of the things that was advantageous about that is we would just get everybody together. And we're like a junior high dance. Guys would go one way, the moms would go the other, and then kids would play with each other, and we're designed to live locally, and we've been living globally. So you're creating your own village, right? You're creating a time to hang out. And that's just one thing that we really enjoy and we still have going on in our lives. And I will say this, we got to fight for this time. Mm-hmm. I mean, we got to fight for it, and you will not ever regret making a decision to fight time for friends.
Yeah, that's a great bit of advice for us as men. For our sons, what I really think we should be doing is encouraging face-to-face time. And that's tough because we live in a time in life where you can just digitally connect with people, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever they're using, well, they're not using Facebook because they're not old like we are. They're using all these different social media apps. They're texting all day long. They're connecting on video games and all this sort of stuff. But face-to-face time is so important. I know you guys are big fans of Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. I've read it. We don't do a lot of endorsements of books, but man, I'm telling you, that is an eye-opening read if you're a dad. It really peels the curtain back on how lonely kids really are. And a lot of it's tied to the fact that they're living online. The point of the book is to point out that we've kind of morphed from a play-based childhood to a phone-based childhood. And in doing that, kids think they're getting genuine connection, but it's kind of a counterfeit connection. There's no face-to-face interaction. And what happens when you're face-to-face with someone, you're making eye contact, you're picking up on verbal cues, you're picking up on nonverbal communication, and kids are learning about other people in that way. And it bonds them in a different way than if they just looked through a screen. So that screen is not the genuine communication, the genuine connection that we're actually built for, that we've done for thousands of years. It's just this kind of veneer of connection. And so if we can encourage face-to-face contact and face-to-face hanging out with kids, that's going to benefit our kids.
Absolutely. MIT professor Sherry Turkle argues in her book, Alone Together, Sherry Turkle argues that technology ramps up, our emotional lives ramp down, and friendships are based, at least in part, on shared emotions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With our kids, with my boys, what I tried to do when they were little, and I look back now and going, oh, good job, young Ted. You didn't even know anything, and you did that. So our last name is Lowe. And so my two boys and I, we kind of started a club called Triangelo. And we would do Triangelo things as friends. And our text thread now after all these years is Triangle. So we try to create friendship with them. And one of the most biggest blessing in my life is watching that my two sons are best friends.
Awesome.
They're best friends, and I would have settled for so much less. They really like each other. They really get each other. And so I love that. And what's so fun is my oldest son, I told him as we were prepping for this, I texted him, I said, hey, we're talking about an episode on friends, and I think you're one of the best friends I've ever seen. And not just with me, like he's got a group of friends. He's so loyal. He makes time. He does special things for them. They celebrate together. And he's just great. And he loves it when I talk about having buddies. Like I'll intentionally go, hey, I'm going to go fly down and we're going to do podcasts with my buddies. And he loves that. Oh, that's the only time he's interested in my life. I think that's the only time he thinks, I kind of want a little piece of your life. The rest of it, nah, not so much.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we need to do with our sons is we need to encourage relational risk. My son came home and he said, hey, Dad, and he brought up one of his guy friends, and he said, he asked out this girl and she like totally rejected him. And I was like, wow. I said, that's really great. I'm like super proud of your friend. And he said, why are you proud of him? I was like, because the courage to step out and be vulnerable and to initiate a relationship. I'm like, if you do that stuff, more often than not, things are going to go your way. Like if your friend continues to operate, these risks, these things, these relational risks that he's taken, they're going to pay off in the long run.
So it gave you a chance to have a conversation with him.
Yeah. So I was, encouraging my son. I said, be like that. Be like that in your, take the initiative. I have a friend who he has a family rule that everyone in his family has to say hi first to people, that's scary when but they do it now like it's breathing. And it almost frustrates me when I go in and his daughters say hi to me before I say hi.
Oh, that's
before
great.
I say hi to them, because he's kind of made this sort of family rule to initiate, to get out there and risk.
I love that. Some of our friends, one of the friends' cousins, their son was having a hard time disconnecting. He was shy. And so they would give him a starter question. And so he walks up to me. He goes, Uncle Ted, have you seen the Upside Down House? It's like this museum of the thing. And I was like, what a random, amazing question that he just came and looked me in the eye. But it's good. It's prompting them. Hey, social skills. It's a good thing. So how do we do this? Let's talk about action steps. How do we help our kids make friends? How do we do that?
One thing we've done is we've gotten our son into sports. And it doesn't have to be sports for you. If your kid doesn't like sports, not a big deal. Getting them into a drama group or get them into like a club of some kind, a STEM group, something like that they can bond around kids that are their same age. Whatever it is, get them around kids, their friends, and then observe them. Who do they spend the most time with? I've noticed my son, he plays hockey. He's got one or two buddies. He's always hanging out with them during practice, goofing around, not paying attention to the coach. We get him on that. But that's the kid I want to encourage a relationship with. Hey, I notice you bump around with that kid on the ice a lot. Why don't we invite him over? Or why don't we go to the park? Get the kids in activities around, and then you as a dad observe and try to push them a little bit more towards sparking that relationship.
Yeah. And I think encouraging them to invite, like the way that you did, you encourage them to invite them over, but not even just inviting them to your house, invite them into the cafeteria, invite other kids into your lunch group, that you sit with, to be proactive with it. And so one of the things with being proactive is just teaching your kids to look around, to look for those kids who might be alone. If you see a kid sitting alone, that should be a red flag to your kids. And if you see your kids sitting alone a lot, or ask your kids, like, how was lunch today? Who'd you sit with? Well, I didn't sit with anybody. Then you can kind of, okay, what's going to happen tomorrow? Well, I don't know. And then you can have a discussion. Okay, are you waiting for somebody to invite you? I think you just need to go and initiate and say, hey, can I sit here? I'm so-and-so. What's your name? And so again, teach your kids how to be initiators.
Yeah. I love that. Got to encourage our kids to have those awkward conversations, right? Like, go ahead and put yourself out there, but also with the kids that need a friend, I saw this thing, it was talking about the buddy bench at school, and the buddy bench would be over the side. And if anybody was having a hard time and needed a buddy, they would go sit on the buddy bench, and then a kid would go and sit beside him. I thought, how phenomenal is that? Teaching kids to identify. And kids were really good at it. They kind of turned it into a game.
So I think one of the things, in order to get some insight and to see how your kids are doing with all these things, is to volunteer at their school. One of the things that I love about All Pro Dad is we have All Pro Dad chapters, and you get an opportunity to take your kids and maybe have breakfast with them at the school and talk about character-based things. But you can sort of see how they interact with their peers, how they interact with folks at school. And then you can kind of make comments. And actually, even one of the curriculum topics is friendship. So I would highly suggest that. But if they, maybe there's no All Pro Dad chapter at your school, maybe start one. Yeah, right. But with that, you're creating opportunities for your kids to interact, not only just with you, with other dads, with other kids.
It's not a huge commitment. It's an hour a month.
No,
it's not a huge thing. And it's simple to sign up. We'll have the link in the show notes. It's super easy.
Yeah, and it's amazing what happens. It's no small thing that happens, right? It's an easy move for dads to make, but just what's happening and what we hear all the time about the chapters is incredible.
Mm-hmm. So that, I think, leads us perfectly into our pro move of the week, which you're going to love. It's awkward. Encourage your son to have an awkward conversation at school, and maybe you go have an awkward conversation with someone that maybe you think you might be good buddies with. Go back, get together, chat with your son, and say, how'd it go for you? My conversation went like this. How was yours? Discuss it together. Awkward could lead to good friendships, so embrace it.
Like that, one of the Family First staff members just moved to the area that I'm in, and he moved, I think, from Colorado. And so he texted me this weekend. He said, hey, my wife's out of town. Would you want to hang out a little bit? And I thought that had to be difficult. We met for like 4 seconds, and we went to hang out and had breakfast together. It was awesome, but I thought that couldn't have been really fun to reach out to do that. So
you're like, no, I'm hanging out with my friends.
Yeah. Can I bring a real friend so you can see what it's like? Yeah. You guys, as always, it's good hanging out with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. And thank you for listening. And we also want to suggest our play of the day. So just go sign up for that. We'll have it in our show notes. And it's just great fatherhood content that come to you each and every day. But most of all, we want to say thank you for listening. We know that you and your kids will be glad that you did.
Thanks again for listening to the All Pro Dad podcast. Behind every episode is our amazing team. Producer Haley Mawat, audio and video editor Buck Buchanan, and production coordinator Corey Walliff. All Pro Dad is the fatherhood program of the nonprofit Family First. Along with our motherhood program, iMom, we exist to help you love your family well. So remember, if you have more questions than answers, then you're probably in the right place. See you next time.